Thanks. Everybody hear me okay? So I'm the guy that caused all this disruption because I got to the airport in Philadelphia yesterday and it said that you don't have a ticket. And I looked and I booked a flight from Milwaukee to Atlanta. It's not a function of my age.
Wait, that's in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. So anyway, so I have to catch an earlier flight. So thanks for, normally you save the best for last. And I appreciate being first. It's actually biblical. No, I'm just kidding. So what we're going to talk about today is how to manage specialty. Anybody in here get any questions on high-cost specialty drugs?
I'll send Regis over to.
Okay, it's kind of a rhetorical question. Specialty and the cost of specialty meds and the trend that it's driving in total cost, also the trend it's driving within the drug cost, is what everybody wants to talk about. And it makes sense because high-cost drugs, either you have a significant increase in the spec premium, or you have a laser, or you have an aggregating specific, but there's some mechanism by which reinsurers are going to protect themselves against these high-cost medications. Depending on the size of the group that you're dealing with, they could have none of these, or they could have a disproportionate one of these. I was having a conversation prior to this with one of the audience members about a 60-life group who got hit with a $360,000 a year drug. I have to tell you what that does. It causes a lot of pain for the plan sponsor and for you as the consultant broker as to what is the potential solution. So what we're going to talk about today are potential solutions for managing specialty drugs. And all of the solutions I'm going to be showing you today are part of the CapCare program. 12 years ago, I was on the way back from doing a PBM RFP selection process for a Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I thought, wow, this is great. Just drop their baseline costs with the PBM by 7 percentage points. Well, what happens from this point forward? Because if you just look at the PBM contract, that baseline pricing, you drop that baseline, and then what happens? What happens? Trend picks you up and just carries you right back up again. So this is really about being proactive. This is based on 12 years of accumulating strategic risk management protocols, and a lot of this stuff is pennies. There's really very few nickels. I'll show you one that's a dime at least, but it's about accumulating a penny here, that pretty soon what you've done, you've defeated trend and maybe even reduced the actual annual overall cost for a plan. So without further ado, and by the way, this is a conversation, so if you have any questions, please ask them as we go. Everybody knows this is just, you got to start out with this slide, right? By 2020, specialty drugs will be $402 billion. So the trend on specialty is estimated anywhere from 15 to 18 to 25%. And everybody's going to go, well, what about biosimilars? We have biosimilars, which are essentially specialty generics coming into the marketplace, but there's a lot of resistance all along that line. First of all, there isn't a real good pathway with the FDA for approval. Second thing is, pharmaceutical manufacturers have methods by which they can delay the introduction. Humira is a perfect example at $20 billion per year, the world's most prescribed drug in terms of dollars. And the first generic came along in 2017. 2017, patent expired. Yay for the good guys. We will not see a generic for Humira until 2023 because AbbVie, the manufacturer, prepared what's called a thicket of lawsuits. So when it was challenged, they dropped over 100 lawsuits, over 100 on the generic biosimilar competitor, brought them to their knees and got them to agree to delay the introduction of the generic for 6 years at $20 billion per year. And who's paying for that? And then when they do produce it, guess what they have to do? They have to pay AbbVie a royalty for the right to produce the generic. Otherwise, they'll just keep these lawsuits in place. So there's all kinds of mechanisms that don't create a level playing field. I'm sure everybody here has heard all of the initiatives over the last several years about we're going to do this and we're going to do that. How many of those have we seen go into effect? 0. There's lots of reasons for that. Not the least of which is the pharma lobby is the most powerful lobby in Congress. And typically when Congress people retire from office, they go to work for pharmaceutical manufacturers as $1 million a year lobbyist, or go to work for a lobby firm that handles that business.